Welcome to Module 5. In this module, we're going to be talking about human factors and team resource management. Before we dive into Module 5, let's talk a little bit about Module 3. Module 3 was aircraft systems and the role of aviation maintenance. You all should have your Module 3 presentations graded and back to you, so please review the feedback on those presentations. So just a quick overview. Some of the factors that came into play that folks had some questions on was the difference between scheduled maintenance and a reliability program. So remember, scheduled maintenance, so this chapter was specifically discussing aircraft systems and how aviation maintenance plays into that. So talking about the parts and pieces of an aircraft and the fact that aircraft are machines and that they fail. And now it's the role of preventative maintenance to prevent those failures from happening. So that's where statistical analysis comes into play, as well as feedback from the operators comes into play so that we can prevent those failures from happening, and that plays into preventative maintenance. So that's how scheduled maintenance is supposed to work. And then the purpose of reliability programs is to verify that these scheduled maintenance practices are in fact working. So for example, they'll design an aircraft, they will take a look at whatever the part is, they will do analysis on that part, such as the metals in the part, and see what the life cycle, the expectant life cycle is of that part. And then they will design a maintenance program around that part. Hence, the scheduled maintenance a scheduled maintenance program is to verify that these parts don't overfly their life cycle expectancy. Then the purpose of a reliability program is to further analyze the life cycle of these parts as they are being used, and use feedback such as operator feedback, and also use feedback such as the parts breaking themselves to verify that the program is in fact working. And if it's not working, then they will amend the program as required. Your presentations overall were really well done. You guys are getting a good hang of how to utilize PowerPoint and different tools to get your presentation across. There was just a couple assignments where there was not audio associated with it. So please proofread after you submit your assignment. Click on that assignment and make sure that's exactly what you were trying to do. And then also there's a couple that still don't have presenter's notes or a transcript. So again, in that notes section there at the bottom of your PowerPoint window, in the notes section, please put in your presenter's notes or your transcript into that section there to get maximum allotted points. So this week is Module 5, and again, we'll be doing a presentation assignment. So I wanted to give you the feedback from Module 3 before we step into Module 5. For Module 5 itself, I'll go through the overview real quick. And in the overview, we're going to define human factors as it relates to aviation. We're going to classify the roles of operators, pilots, mechanics, managers, and owners in maintaining a positive human factors culture. And then we're going to explain the challenges of working in teams in the aviation industry. So many of you are already working in the aviation industry. Many of you are military, so you understand what it's like to work in teams and understand what it's like to utilize human factors. So for most of us who are in the military, we're familiar with the term ORM, Operational Risk Management, that plays into this human factors chapter. So as we start, we'll get into the readings here. So let me get to that page. And as we get into the readings, you're going to, again, be utilizing the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, Chapter 2, Aeronautical Decision Making, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, Chapter 17, Aeromedical Factors, and then we're going to be visiting the FAA Human Factors Division link when we talk about human factors, specifically in aviation maintenance. So my recommendation is that you read Chapter 17 first, the Aeromedical Factors, followed by Chapter 2, next, which is your aeronautical decision making, and then finally move on to your human factors division, FAA, to learn about aviation maintenance. Then click over to the videos tab, and there you'll find a couple of there's a YouTube video on the aeromedical factors that's put out by Embry-Riddle. So let's talk about the readings real quick. So first, like I said, go into Chapter 17, Aeromedical Factors. That's my recommendation. And the reason being is because oftentimes aeronautical decision-making, operational risk management, human factors all starts with aeromedical, because the common theme is that there's a human in the loop, and usually human error pilot error, maintainer error, dispatcher error is often cited as the probable cause of an accident. And as time has passed, since decades past, we've moved less and less, or we moved away from the machine being the problem, and now moving into an operator error type of world we live in now. So let's first talk about the chapter 17, which is aeromedical factors. So let's do a quick brief overview just to give you guys some understanding of it. So a lot of this, remember, is pilot oriented, but that it's still holds true for the aviation industry as a whole. So first, we'll discuss a little bit about obtaining a medical certificate, just some general health terms. So some big ones: hypoxia, the different types of hypoxia, and different aeromedical factors that are involved. So those of you who've already been flying, a lot of these terms will be very familiar to you. And for some of you, you've never heard of these before. But some of them, such as like hyperventilation, you should have heard of already. So we'll talk about just a couple different aeromedical factors in this section here. And then as we continue moving our way down, we'll talk about different illusions that happen in flight. So different optical illusions, inner ear, semicircular canal illusions that happen and can be the cause of crashes as well. This will talk a little bit more about visual illusions, such as visual landing illusions. We'll talk about fatigue, motion sickness, and then exposure to toxic environments as well. Talk about alcohol, drugs, and the effects that has on the body, decompression sickness, altitude sickness. For those of you who've scuba dived before, these should be familiar to you. And then we'll talk about, again, some vision limitations, because obviously flying aircraft is very vision task heavy in the vision section there. So we'll talk about visual illusions again. So this will move into more night visual illusions, such as false horizons, autokinesis, etc. And then that will bring us to the end of the chapter. So aeromedical is kind of the baseline of everything as we start moving into human factors, and that'll help move you towards the next chapter. The next chapter is going to be chapter 2, aeronautical decision making. So this should mirror something that's very familiar to most of us in the military world, and this is ORM, or operational risk management. This kind of falls under that same kind of theme there. So we'll talk about the different factors of aeronautical decision making. So which phases of flight are the most susceptible to human error, and then we'll talk about how we manage risk So identifying, trapping the hazards. You'll learn about the Swiss cheese model here. You'll learn about the hazardous attitudes, which is pretty important. Many folks use this specifically towards the assignment, utilizing the hazardous attitudes. We'll also talk about risk assessment and how to utilize risk assessment forms. Like I said, or this can be in tie with ORM forms as well. So making decisions on the flight or the action based off of your risk management or risk assessment. We'll talk about mitigating risk, and then the PAVE checklist. PAVE is an acronym the FAA uses to help mitigate risks for flying, so aircraft environment, etc., that you see here on your page. Then you'll talk about human factors specifically, so behavior, motivations, decision-making processes, and then we'll talk a little bit about the 5 Ps. So this will talk about single pilot resource management, and etc. So, pilot, aircraft, pressures, environment, and this will just expand on that. Then we'll talk about decision making while airborne. So after you've already made the ground decision making, and how do we make decisions airborne, and how do we trap those from becoming major errors in the future? How to utilize automation. As aircraft are becoming more advanced, we utilize more and more automation. So this will talk more about automation, and finally we'll get into the summary. So those are the big heavy readings that are associated with this chapter. Then we'll go into the FAA Human Factors Division page here. So specifically, you're going to go to this link down here, Human Factors in Aviation Maintenance. And here you'll find a whole bunch of information on how we mitigate human factors in maintenance. So this will talk about different concepts within it, such as the line operations safety assessment, which is, you could think of that as your ORM or aeronautical decision making matrix, but utilized in a maintenance context there. So this is a great resource for that. Before I dive more into that, let's talk about our assignment for the end of this module. So let me get to that real quick. It'll be Module 5, Presentation Assignment, Building a Positive Human Factors Culture. So in this assignment, you're going to assume the role of a manager in the aviation industry. You're going to prepare a presentation that outlines your plan to establish and maintain a positive human factors culture within your organization. You're going to do this considering the roles of pilots, mechanics, and managers as part of your presentation. Okay, so what does this all mean, and how do we apply this in the context of our module? So you're going to assume the role of a manager in the aviation industry. So you're going to manage whatever it is department, a maintenance department, an operations department, a managerial department, whatever it happens to be. You're going to assume the role of that manager. As you can see, this module relies very heavily on the operations aspect of it and the maintenance aspect of it. So that's where you're going to find a lot of your resources. So if you go with, for example, the role of pilots in this one, how are you going to create and establish and maintain a positive human factors environment? That's where you can utilize the concepts that you learned here in Chapter 2, Aeronautical Decision Making. So you can talk about how you are going to run or manage your department to maintain a positive human factors culture utilizing the concepts that you used or that you learned here in Chapter 2, so aeronautical decision making. So you're thinking, how do we utilize the 5 Ps, or how do we utilize a operational risk management worksheet or something to decide risk or manage the risk prior to the flight. And then we're going to talk more about how do we manage risk during the flight. So as a manager, it's up to you. You guys can be creative. You can utilize programs that you've seen before in the past, or you can utilize programs that you think would work the best, or you can utilize programs that are out there that you want to learn more about, such as from major airlines or from major corporations that utilize the same thing. If you go down the maintenance route, this is a great resource as well. So again, you can use the Chapter 2 Aeronautical Decision Making concepts towards your presentation. And then if you're going to be in the maintenance realm, this is a great place to be, is the Human Factors Division from the FAA, which we've briefly discussed on. So specifically, you can look within this section and look at you can get more information on the Line Operations Safety Assessment, and you can go over to the Training and Tools tab and look at kind of the current assessments that they're utilizing. So again, the Line Operations Safety Assessments tab, etc. So utilizing the same concepts that we learned from the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, you can meld that with what the FAA has out there, and then do some research on your own to see what's out there that other corporations and companies are offering in the risk management and decision-making world. If you have any questions on your presentations, so I've noticed that some folks have said that you kind of got a little bit lost in your presentation looking for a topic, or you didn't quite know exactly where the presentation or where to start with your presentation or with your writing assignment. Please, if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me or your classmates to see if you can garner some ideas, or if you think that you have a great idea but you're not sure if it's in line with what we're looking for, please feel free to email me, and I can email you right back and say, yeah, that's great. That sounds great. Or I can redirect you saying, hey, that's a great idea. However, utilize it in this context to make sure that we're maximizing what we can out of this module. Again, I'm really looking for you all to be creative, explore the world that's out there within the module, the context of the module, but at the same time, I'm utilizing the presentations and the writing to evaluate your understanding of the specific information within the module. As we have no testing of any sort in this class, everything's going to be pretty much based off of your blog discussion posts, your writing assignments, and your presentation assignments. As always, feel free to contact me at any point with any questions that you may have, and I look forward to a wonderful week.